Hi there. I want to be pretty candid in this video. About a month ago, I was arrested in central London under Section 13 of the Terrorism Act, which bans people for showing support for prescribed organisations. I attended a protest where everybody gathered in Parliament Square, similar to what happened yesterday, where people were holding up signs saying, "I oppose genocide, I support Palestine Action." I was there for two reasons, really, neither of which had very much to do with Palestine Action itself. First of all, it's been clear for a very long time now that Israel are committing a genocide in Gaza, and this is being confirmed by human rights organisations and recently by a United Nations Commission. So it's clear that genocide is being committed, that is active and ongoing. Palestinians who are innocent, including many children, about half of the victims are children, die every single day. So this is something that we collectively have a duty to oppose. And what's supposed to happen is that the states, the governments we elect, are supposed to intervene. They've got a duty under international law to do that. And they're failing to do that. So it's really important in those circumstances that people of good conscience speak out and take action to try to demand that the government changes their position. The second reason I was there, and probably for me the bigger motivation, was that I found the proscription of Palestine Action to be an unconscionable attack on freedom of speech and expression. To be detained under the Terrorism Act for simply holding up a sign, as far as I'm concerned, is unconscionable, it's wrong, and it shouldn't happen in a democracy. We fought over generations to have democratic rights and freedoms, to have the right to protest, and these rights shouldn't be given up lightly. It should horrify everybody in the United Kingdom that the government are arresting. It's now over 2,000 people simply for holding up a sign. If you're watching this video and you live in the UK, you shouldn't imagine that this doesn't affect you. The right to protest is an essential freedom that we need to have in order that we can have the power collectively to push back against the government and those in power and authority in circumstances where they do things that we don't consent to, that we don't approve of. We've got to have that power. We've got to have that right. It's why we enshrined it after World War II in the European Convention, and it's why Tony Blair's government enshrined it in the Human Rights Act, even though that government was responsible actually for rolling away many of these rights. It was that government that passed the Terrorism Act in the first place that is being used to crack down on freedom of protest. And I'm really concerned about the direction of travel here. Under the Conservative government, there were several bits of legislation that were passed that already restrict freedom of protest in this country in a very severe way. The Policing Act made it illegal in the United Kingdom to have a protest that is, quote, noisy and disruptive. The Public Order Act then added further restrictions to our freedom to protest, including making it illegal to carry on devices that can be used to lock on. And now the government proposes further measures to limit our protest. And as they outline what they're going to do, in weasel words, they say, we believe in democratic rights. These are long cherished freedoms. And yet the government is saying they need more power. In the context of over 2,000 people being arrested under the Terrorism Act for holding up signs, the government say we actually need more powers to prevent people from protesting. Here's the Home Secretary just this morning outlining that case.
Yes, what I'm allowing is for the police to be able to take cumulative disruption into account, and it is important, I think, that we make this change so that the right balance can be struck between allowing people the freedom to protest, which is an ancient freedom in this country, but balancing that against the rights of the wider community to be able to go about their business free from intimidation and fear.
Okay, let's leave aside the moral dimension here and just focus on whether this is the right thing to do politically for the government. My view is that, look, what they could have done with the appointment of a new Home Secretary is find a way of getting away from this somehow, of stopping the arrests, of moving police resources actually to where they're needed in London, rather than having them needlessly arrest people for holding up pieces of paper and pieces of cardboard, especially given that most of them seem to be elderly people and people of conscience. And instead of doing that, they've doubled down. And the difficulty is that I think people have seen these scenes play out and they just don't believe the rhetoric, because there's such a big gap between the ideas that have been presented and what people see on their screens. These aren't hate mobs. These aren't intimidating protesters. They're people sitting down. They're people peacefully holding up signs. And what's happening to them is that they are being picked up physically and put in the back of police vans and arrested and charged. And I think the public will continue to have sympathy for those people, not least because they'll have some grudging respect for what they've had to think about in order to take this action. Under Section 13 of the Terrorism Act, people can face up to 6 months in prison and up to a £5,000 fine. And under Section 12 of the Terrorism Act, the more serious offence is up to 14 years in prison. Now, for people to be willing to risk that offence and all of the other consequences that might come with it, struggling to travel to other countries, for example, if you've got a terrorism charge on your record, people are going to have sympathy for that. People are going to understand that the people who've done this have wrestled with their conscience and they've decided, I don't have a choice. I have to do this because of how I feel, because I think that democratic rights are really important and I'm therefore willing to get arrested. So I think the government is really making a mistake here. I don't think the public are with them, and I think it's going to be damaging for them, just like it's been damaging in other instances where they've attacked sympathetic groups. But the second thing is, I also think the strategy of mass civil disobedience is a highly effective strategy. So if you think about it, the police have already arrested over 2,000 people, and if the government want to continue with this, they're going to have to be charged. And most of those people are going to be pleading not guilty. I can tell you, I've spoken to them. And what will end up happening is that the courts will end up being clogged up with these cases. There'll be judicial reviews. It's going to be messy, and it's going to take up a hell of a lot of time. And meanwhile, people are going to continue to be engaging in these actions, wasting police resources, wasting court resources, and piling up pressure on the government to change course. This is not going away, however much the government might want it to. And finally, I think what's been proposed is also likely to be counterproductive. Because if you think about the motivations of the protesters, myself included, a further attack on our democratic rights, far from deterring people from taking this action and breaking the law, is actually quite likely to galvanise them, because it's precisely the attack on democracy, on the right to protest, on all of that, that's leading people to want to take this action in the first place. So I really don't think these crackdowns are going to be effective. I think mass civil disobedience is going to get the public on side. It's going to be effective for other reasons. And the government are just making a huge error here. Well, that's enough from me. What do you think? Am I right? Please let me know in the comments. But for now, goodbye and best wishes.